Think about those movies that feel like they've, well, always just been there, part of the furniture, the ones you can watch over and over.
Mm.
Today, we're going deep into the really surprising story of one of those films. A movie that actually, well, it stumbled pretty badly when it first landed.
You're talking about the Shawshank Redemption.
Exactly. A
Yeah.
total classic now, obviously. But back in 1994, it was, let's just say, a bit of a box office disappointment.
Yeah, and that reversal, that journey, that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. We've pulled together some really fascinating sources to try and understand how that happened.
Okay.
We've got a BDC piece with Frank Darabont and Morgan Freeman looking back. Film Affinity's list of all its awards, which is quite something now.
Right.
There's a Reddit thread where people really get into the novella versus the film, the usual detailed Wikipedia entry. Cinema Blend had some great behind-the-scenes bits.
Oh, cool.
A Business Standard article looking at the themes, and even a piece from The Shield discussing, prison life and that core friendship in the movie.
Wow, okay. So our mission today really is to dig into why this film, based on a Stephen King story and not his usual horror thing, right?
A novella.
Why did it go from, struggling in theaters to becoming this huge, enduring thing that still hits you, right here?
It's a great question.
Okay, so let's rewind. 30 years ago, the release. It looked promising, didn't it? Stephen King name, powerful story. Andy Dufresne, Red, Shawshank, survival, friendship.
It absolutely did. And the way they made it, that really added to the potential. Filming at the actual Ohio State Reformatory, that place had just closed down because of inhumane conditions.
Oh.
Yeah, so Darabont said you could, feel the history, the despair. It wasn't just a backdrop. The cast and crew felt that weight, that kind of foreboding atmosphere.
Yeah, you can imagine. And the early signs were good, too. I read the producer, Liz Glotzer, said the test screenings were just incredible.
Yes, best she'd ever experienced, apparently. So, hopes were high. The buzz was definitely positive internally.
And then crickets at the box office.
Pretty much. Morgan Freeman's quote is blunt. It tanked.
Tanked, wow. It made back, $16 million in the U.S. on a $25 million budget initially?
Something like that, yeah. Darabont said they just couldn't find their audience right away.
So why? What do you think was going on there? Why didn't people connect immediately despite those great test screenings?
Well, you have to look at what else was out in 1994. It was a massive year.
Yeah.
You had Forrest Gump.
Huge.
And Pulp Fiction. Both just absolute cultural phenomena. Massive hits. Everyone's talking about and seeing them multiple times.
Right. Total zeitgeist movies.
Exactly. And Gump was this big, emotional, feel-good journey. Pulp Fiction was, revolutionary, cool, stylish, endlessly quotable. Shawshank.
Well, it's more thoughtful, maybe a bit darker, more introspective.
So it just got overshadowed, lost in the noise.
It seems likely. It just wasn't quite capturing that same immediate, pop culture buzz. The conversation was elsewhere.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Freeman also had that funny point about the title itself.
Oh, yeah. The name being hard to remember. Yeah. He joked that people kept getting it wrong, calling it Shawshank Redemption or whatever, which, if you can't easily tell someone the name of the great movie you just saw.
It definitely hampers word of mouth, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That organic spread.
For sure.
And you mentioned the marketing earlier.
Yeah.
They kind of downplayed the Stephen King connection.
Right. Trying to attract a more prestigious audience was the idea.
Right.
Maybe people wary of the horror label.
Perhaps. But in doing that, maybe they lost King's built-in audience and didn't quite nail who the film was for. It's a tricky balance.
Yeah, you could end up pleasing no one. And there were other factors mentioned too, right? Not many prominent female roles.
True.
Prison movies weren't exactly box office gold back then.
Generally seen as
Well-
quite grim, yeah.
And just maybe that slightly confusing, slightly long title. So, okay, it stumbles out of the gate, but then the redemption arc begins. The film's own redemption arc.
Exactly. This is where it gets really fascinating. Its second life really kicked off on home video.
Right, VHS.
VHS. It became the most rented video of 1995. Think about that shift. People are finding it at home, maybe watching it more than once, really letting it sink in.
Yeah, maybe the pacing works better at home. You're not feeling rushed. You can absorb the atmosphere, the performances.
That's a really good point. The things that maybe worked against it in a busy multiplex become strengths when you're watching it differently. And that slower discovery allowed that word of mouth, the real word of mouth, to actually build.
And then came cable TV.
Oh, massively.
Sure.
TNT started showing it constantly from 97 onwards. Suddenly, huge new audiences are stumbling across it, maybe late at night, and getting hooked.
It just kept finding people.
Precisely. And by the early 2000s, you start seeing it pop up on all those greatest movies ever lists.
Yeah, I remember that BBC poll, best film never to have won an Oscar. That felt like a real turning point in his reputation.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there's IMDb, #1 on their user-voted top 250 list since, what, 2008?
Yeah, still there. Above The Godfather. It's incredible that momentum just never seemed to stop.
And the internet itself played a role, didn't it? As online communities grew in that decade after its release, people had places to talk about it, dissect the themes, share theories.
Right, building that collective appreciation. So, okay, this massive resurgence happens. What were the core things, the themes that you think really finally connected with people so strongly?
I think it really boils down to those fundamental themes.
Yeah.
Resilience.
Yeah.
Finding hope in the absolute darkest of places and the power of friendship.
Yeah.
Those things are timeless, universal.
Mm-hmm.
And people started finding all sorts of layers. Some saw religious parallels, like Andy is this Christ figure bringing light into the prison.
Even though Darabont said that wasn't his intention.
Right. He said it wasn't deliberate, but the fact that people see it speaks to the film's symbolic power, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And then you had other readings too, right? Like anti-religious interpretations or even existentialist takes.
Yeah, looking at it through Sartre, seeing freedom as this internal thing, resisting being defined by the institution. It's amazing how much discussion a supposed flop generated.
It really is. And specific moments took on huge meaning, didn't they? Like the opera scene.
Oh, the Marriage of Figaro scene.
Yeah.
That's often cited as just this moment of pure, transcendent freedom for the inmates. A tiny taste of something beautiful breaking through the ugliness.
Why do you think that one scene hits so hard?
I think it's the contrast, like you said. The sheer unexpected beauty of that music filling that oppressive space. It's a reminder that there's a world beyond the walls, even if it's fleeting. It represents hope, I guess.
Yeah. And Zihuatanejo, that name becomes almost mythical.
It really does. It's the ultimate symbol of escape, isn't it?
Yeah.
Paradise, a fresh start, maybe even a kind of innocence regained, like Nietzsche's idea of guiltlessness.
Tim Robbins had a take on that, didn't he? That it feels achievable.
Yeah, he suggested its power is that it feels like a real place you could get to and escape from whatever your personal prison might be. It's not just a fantasy.
I like that. Roger Ebert saw it more as an allegory for holding on to your self-worth, didn't he? Andy never letting the prison break his spirit.
Exactly. Andy's integrity is key. And, the film even has these little nods to the power of movies themselves.
Oh, yeah, the prison cinema, showing Gilda. That offers them a different kind of escape.
A temporary one, yeah. And Andy literally uses a movie poster, Rita Hayworth, then Raquel Welch, to hide his actual escape route.
That's true. It's layered.
And central to all of this, of course, is that friendship between Andy and Red.
So important.
It really is. It's often highlighted as this rare thing in movies. A deep, genuine bond between two men that isn't about romance, but about, shared experience, humor, respect, finding their own kind of freedom together, regardless of the bars.
It's the heart of the film, really. Okay, let's shift gears a little. We mentioned it's based on a Stephen King novella, Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. How different is the film from the original story? That Reddit thread dug into this, right?
It did, yeah. There are some pretty significant changes, actually. For starters, in the book, Red is Irish, a white Irishman.
Oh, really? Wow, okay. So casting Morgan Freeman was a departure.
A brilliant departure, but yeah, different from the page. Also, the novella has multiple wardens over the years. Andy is inside. The film consolidates them all into Warden Norton, making him a much more focused, single antagonist for Andy.
Ah, okay. Streamlines the conflict. Makes sense for a movie.
Definitely. And Red's journey feels maybe a bit different. In the film, you really feel his growing worry and care for Andy. Like when he's terrified, Andy might commit suicide near the end.
Right.
In the novella, it's less ambiguous, and he actually tells Red he's planning to escape.
Oh, wow. That changes things quite a bit, the dynamic between them.
It does. And Brooks Hatlin, the old librarian, his fate is different too.
How so?
In the book, he dies in a retirement home, kind of lonely and forgotten. The film gives him that much more tragic arc, struggling with the outside world and ultimately taking his own life.
Yeah, that scene is heartbreaking. Really hammers home the institutionalization theme.
It really does. And Tommy Williams, the young inmate who could prove Andy's innocent.
What happens to him in the book?
He gets transferred to a nicer minimum security prison as a deal for his silence.
Yeah.
In the film. Oh, it's much darker. Hadley murders him on Norton's orders.
Right. Massively raises the stakes and makes Norton truly evil.
Exactly. Shows the lengths they'll go to. Oh, and a little trivia. Andy's fake identity after escaping. It's Peter Stevens in the book.
But Randall Stevens in the film.
Yes, apparently a little Easter egg, a nod from Darabont to Randall Flagg, the recurring villain in King's other works, like The Stand in the Dark Tower.
Huh. Nice touch for the King fans. Okay, let's get into some of those production details from Cinema Blend. These are always fun.
For sure. Well, first off, the rights. Frank Darabont bought the rights to the novella from Stephen King back in '87 for just $5,000.
$5,000, that's it.
That's it. And apparently King never even cashed the check.
No way.
Yeah, the story goes he framed it and sent it back to Darabont years later saying something like, in case you ever need bail money.
That's amazing. Shows a lot of trust. Or maybe just King didn't think that much of the story's movie potential back then.
Could be. But Darabont clearly saw something special.
Yeah.
He was incredibly passionate about directing it himself.
Didn't Rob Reiner offer him a lot of money not to direct it?
Yeah, Reiner, who'd had huge success with Stand By Me in Misery, wanted to direct it. He offered Darabont something like $2.4 to $3 million to step aside.
Wow. And Reiner had ideas for casting too, right? Like Tom Cruise as Andy.
Tom Cruise as Andy, Harrison Ford as Red. Can you imagine?
That's a very different note.
Totally different vibe. But Darabont held firm, took a smaller director's fee, kept the $25 million budget, and made his vision.
Good for him. Who else was in the running for Andy? I heard Tom Hanks passed.
Yeah, Hanks was busy with Forrest Gump. Kevin Costner passed because he was doing Waterworld. Clint Eastwood, Paul Newman were considered for Red at points. And for Andy, names like Johnny Depp, Nicolas Cage, even Charlie Sheen were apparently floated.
Wild. It really shows how casting shapes everything. Freeman as Red, despite the novella, just feels so definitive now.
Absolutely iconic. And you know that mugshot of young Red in the film?
Yeah?
That's actually Morgan Freeman's son, Alfonso Freeman.
Yeah.
He also has a small cameo chanting, "Fresh fish," when the new inmates arrive.
Get out. That's a great piece of trivia.
Isn't it? Now, filming itself back at that reformatory sounded pretty grueling.
18-hour days, I read.
Yeah, long days. And Freeman mentioned it could be tense sometimes. Darabont was apparently a real perfectionist, demanding lots of takes.
Like that first scene between Andy and Red, asking for the rock hammer.
Reportedly took 9 hours to shoot that one exchange. 9 hours.
Wow. Dedication. Or maybe obsession.
Maybe a bit of both. And here's an ironic twist.
Yeah.
The halfway house where Brooks stays, where he struggles with freedom. They filmed those scenes inside the actual prison administration building. So he's meant to be outside, but he's still physically within the prison walls.
Oh, that's bleakly perfect. And the escape itself. Crawling through that pipe.
Yeah, not pleasant. Tim Robbins was crawling through a mix of, water, chocolate syrup, and sawdust to make it look like sewage.
Glamorous.
Not quite. Apparently, there were some genuine concerns later about the toxicity of the actual stream he emerges into. And, the dedication at the very end of the film, in memory of Alan Green.
Vaguely rings a bell. Who was he?
He was Frank Darabont's agent and close friend who sadly passed away from AIDS just before the film came out.
Oh, that's poignant. A nice tribute.
Yeah. Oh, and one for the real detail-oriented folks. On the DVD release, they apparently digitally corrected the location of Warden Norton's self-inflicted gunshot wound from the theatrical version.
Seriously, they went back and fixed that.
Yep. Talk about attention to detail after the fact.
That's commitment. And that oak tree. The one at the end where Andy leaves the note for Red.
Oh, yeah, the Shawshank tree became a huge pilgrimage site for fans.
But it's gone now, right?
Sadly, yeah. Got damaged by lightning, then strong winds eventually took the rest of it down a few years ago. A real shame.
But the prison itself is still drawing crowds.
Oh, hugely. The Mansfield Reformatory is a major tourist attraction now. Brings in significant money for the local area every year, through tours, events, you name it. It's a concrete legacy of the film's impact.
Amazing. And yet, despite all this love, all this impact, 0 Oscars from 7 nominations.
Yeah, tough year. Forrest Gump swept a lot of them. But it did win Best Foreign Film Awards over in Japan, interestingly.
Which kind of brings us full circle to its legacy today. Still #1 on IMDb after all these years.
Since 2008. It's incredible longevity, consistently on greatest films lists everywhere.
And recognized officially too, right? In the National Film Registry.
Yep. Selected in 2015, they cited its cultural, historic, and aesthetic significance, which feels absolutely right.
It really does. And you hear so many people, famous people, regular people, talk about how much the movie means to them personally.
It connects on a deep level.
Yeah.
And the word Shawshank itself. It's just become shorthand for prison, hasn't it? Or that feeling of being trapped.
Yeah, it's entered the language. It's just amazing how a movie that, technically failed at first
Mm-hmm.
has become this beloved, almost universally admired touchstone about hope.
It really proves that opening weekend numbers aren't everything, doesn't it? Sometimes greatness takes a while to be recognized.
Absolutely. A film's true value isn't always measured in those initial dollars.
So, okay, wrapping up this deep dive. What an incredible journey for the Shawshank Redemption.
Hmm.
From that initial stumble to this absolute cinematic titan, it really speaks to, well, the power of word of mouth, doesn't it?
Definitely. And how essential themes like hope and friendship can resonate if given the chance. Plus, the impact of home video and TV finding that audience.
And looking at the differences between the novella and the film gives you that great insight into adaptation, the choices filmmakers make.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. What is it about these stories? Stories of resilience, of finding hope against all odds? Why do they grab us so deeply, so consistently?
Wow.
And maybe think about this too. What other gems are out there? Books, movies, music, whatever. Works of art that maybe didn't hit big initially, but are just waiting for us to discover their power.
So thanks, guys, for listening. I hope you like, comment, and subscribe. See you next time at Crime Breach.